Hey guys, Brian Mahon here, certified insurance counselor. And today we're talking about what everyone's talking about in 2020, the COVID-19 coronavirus and how that's actually impacting business insurance. Now, I wanted to make this video back in, April, March, and May, but quite frankly, I didn't feel comfortable doing that because there wasn't really enough data. There weren't, judges and courts deciding, how insurance policies would respond. And really, there wasn't much to report other than, it's not covered. But in this video, we're going to go through a number of different coverages, mainly what you're probably here for: business interruption, business income and extra expense, and loss of income due to coronavirus shutting down a small business, and get into the nitty-gritty details of that. General liability, cyber liability, workers' comp, and wrap up with ways the insurance industry has responded, as well as what potential solutions long term we might see in the coming years. Now, before we get into today's agenda, if you do find this video helpful, drop me a like, subscribe, comment. Would love to hear your thoughts and any feedback on future videos you'd like to see. So, without further ado, this is kind of the order we'll go through everything: business interruption, workers' comp, employees who catch the virus, as well as the implications for remote workers, general liability, what happens there, the increase in cyber liability exposure since coronavirus has sent a lot of people to work from home, and the industry and potential long-term solutions. So this is a what I always call the most misunderstood business insurance coverage. It's a property insurance coverage. Business interruption, you might have heard it referred to, or business income and extra expense. It's a coverage designed to help a business get back up on their feet when they experience a property loss and they can't do business. I'll link to another video here and into the how to calculate this limit, but essentially it's your net income plus your continued operating expenses are typically covered. If there's a fire or a property loss and you can't operate your facility, a lot of manufacturers, a lot of restaurants, those types of businesses really rely on this. So really the data and the policies and the courts have decided there's no virus coverage, and there's a couple of reasons, but two main ones. Mainly, a lot of business income property forms are all built off this. All the insurance carriers use the ISO form that we'll jump into in the next slide, but oftentimes there's a virus exclusion, and we'll look at the wording of that. But courts have also said that the virus being present in your business or your restaurant isn't really physical damage. So looking at the kind of standard language in the red, and throughout this video, anything in red is kind of the big picture. If you want to kind of skip through and read the red parts, feel free. But it's saying, we're not going to pay for any loss or damage caused by or resulting from any virus, bacteria, microorganism that induces or is capable of inducing physical distress, illness, or disease. So that's pretty cut and clear. And then it goes on to kind of add a little bit of coverage for things like fungus and dry rot. But more importantly, and sorry, my little face is going to cut into the language a little bit. When you're reading an insurance policy, these hyphens are definitions. So you have to go look at the definitions of these words. So an insurance company will pay for a business interruption, business income loss only if you sustain these four things: a suspension of your operations during the period of restoration, and it must be caused by a direct physical loss of or damage to property. Essentially, the coronavirus being present in your business, obviously very difficult to prove and see, it's microscopic. And technically, you can still walk in the front door, turn on all the lights, and use that facility, even if a virus is present. And that's what a lot of courts have decided. Oftentimes, a covered cause of loss, the things, the property losses that will be covered. One acronym we learn when we're getting certified to sell insurance is REVEL-SHAW. Riot, explosion, volcano, that's the rev. FL, fire, lightning. Shaw, SHAWW. I think weight of ice, snow, and sleet. Oh, this is testing me. But essentially, there's kind of your basic, broad, and your special forms, and the 9 basics, and then you get the 13. I'll comment below or link below, a whole list of those acronyms. But virus is obviously not one. But again, business is designed for catastrophic things and to get you up on your feet. No better, no worse. So it's extremely tough, and it's easy to paint that kind of David versus Goliath scenario. I had a reporter call me and talk to me about, I've talked to all these restaurant owners in New York City, and, they, pointing the finger at the insurance companies, say pay. And I completely understand that. But really, this type of coverage was never designed for a pandemic like this. So it's really uncharted territory, and people love things to be, this or that and black and white, but it's extremely gray, and we'll see as we get into this further. But there's another thing. So a lot of people are saying, oh, my business has been interrupted. I need coverage. But there's a whole nother thing called civil authority. And usually this is a coverage where if a local, state, federal government kind of a power in authority, police or whoever, shut down your address, your business, your location because of something nearby. When 9/11 happened, the debris from the towers going down, a lot of businesses within, a few mile radius couldn't go in to their physical business and do business. So there's a lot of business income and extra expense claims, and, a lot of those were paid. But if you kind of, dig into a civil authority, it still, must be dangerous physical conditions resulting from damage or continuation of covered cause of loss. So you have to go back to look at, what is a covered cause of loss, and you'll see, it's fire, it's lightning, it's, weight of snow and ice, it's explosions, riots, not viruses. So moving on, states have kind of decided, how they were going to respond. There's been about 200,000 insurance claims for this type of coverage since September. 80% are going closed with no payment. 2% policyholders, business owners, insureds, are seeing insurance companies pay. So this is an example between Cincinnati Insurance Company and North State Deli, sandwich shop in North Carolina, that said the court found that the insured's lack of ability to access their property constituted a direct physical loss. So kind of a civil authority type of leaning there. Where Cincinnati messed up is there was no specific virus exclusion, so they must have missed it on that policy. Moving on, most states, however, 80% or so are saying, the mere threat of a microscopic coronavirus on a business's premises does not constitute direct physical loss or damage to covered property. So a ton of big states, blue states, red states, California, Texas, California, Florida, Pennsylvania are all saying there's no coverage. So moving on to workers' comp. Again, workers' comp is very state-specific. Each insurance policy has to bend to the laws of all 50 states in the United States. So, our claims covered if an employee catches COVID. It depends, and no one likes that answer, but it really does matter what the specifics are. So, a lot of insurance companies have been bending their payments to police officers, emergency responders, nursing, those types of kind of essential workers, but not so much to grocery stores or office workers or other kind of industries. But things to kind of keep in mind and ask in examining these situations is, was the employee exposed? What are their job duties? Were they traveling? Were they doing something outside of their daily routine? It's very difficult to kind of pinpoint, I definitely caught this at work. So I have a situation where my spouse ended up having to get tested a bunch of times because a coworker of hers had 3 or 4 kind of COVID scares and had to get tested. But her spouse was a police officer and was, obviously working very closely with, arresting people, and your bodily fluids are exchanged and you're in close contact, and that was a situation where it was very easy to pinpoint that the police officer got it from work, but not so obvious where someone who works in an office or a lab or behind closed doors, not really interacting with customers day to day, like retail or healthcare. So here's kind of a list of questions to kind of keep in mind if you're in like an HR role and you're, or even a business ownership role, and you have an employee with an exposure. And feel free to pause the video and look at these. I'm not going to read all of these, but some of the things to keep in mind is kind of really just keeping track of, when was it, where were you, were you at any health code violations? Were you spending time with neighbors, friends, or family? You've got to get really granular, kind of investigating these things, so you can see where a lot of these kind of workers' comp claim scenarios just get denied, or there's not enough information. It's very difficult to prove you got it at work. So what if an employee is injured while working at home? Is that covered by workers' comp? And they catch COVID. Maybe they pick up their kid from the daycare and they're working from home and they catch it, like this guy in this picture. Again, maybe it depends. You've got to look at the specific questions and the answers to those and kind of do an investigation. A lot of times, workers' comp claim adjuster is responsible for kind of getting all the details of the situation. A lot of insurance agencies have kind of workers' comp advocates or claims specialists within the agency that can advocate on your behalf with the insurance company. So that's something I would definitely keep in mind. So what about general liability? This is basic business insurance, kind of covers your entity and your business from any lawsuits where you've caused bodily injury or property damage to someone else. So again, it's an it depends. It's a maybe. What if someone says they visited my business and someone wasn't wearing a mask and I got the virus and it's your fault? The virus exclusions are a little less common in this type of policy. You've again have to keep in mind, the definitions of the policy indicated by the by the little, what are those things called? Paraphrase symbol. In the red here, this is very important though. Businesses owe 4 duties to all of their employees. They have to keep those employees safe. Did they breach their duty to offer a safe workplace? Did they cause a virus? And was the employer negligent, essentially? So again, there isn't really a specific law that says, these four things are set in stone, and if you break them, you're violated. But OSHA and the CDC kind of set the stage. So, business owners have a duty to have a safe workplace, and a breach of that duty, not cleaning or whatever, could be seen as negligent, and the employer could be at risk. So that's something to keep in mind. And when businesses are thinking about, we've got to cover our behind, how do you do that? And it's really document. PPE you've given out or provide. Have you had any, temperature checking or surveys for each employee? Are you cleaning the premises more often? When, dates, times, are employees wearing masks? All of these things. And not so much how your policy will respond, but coronavirus has definitely impacted cyber insurance. So again, if you are a user of technology in your business, that's what cyber insurance is for. Say there's a data breach, personal health information, personal identifiable information, personal financial information of your customers, your clients, and a bad actor, hacker gets a hold of those and you have a breach. Cyber insurance is going to step in and really front the bill for a whole host of mandatory and necessary services. First thing that's going to happen when you have a data breach, someone's going to come in, do an IT forensics expert, someone who charges more than your favorite lawyer to figure out what happened and to what extent, who was breached. From there, you have to pay to offer monitoring, credit monitoring, and notification services to let those people know, hey, your private information has been breached, and we're monitoring the situation and we're letting you know. Any potential lawsuits from regulators or customers, fines and penalties, as well as public relations firms. Say a big news article comes out saying, hey, your company was not safe with your data. You don't want to lose your current customers or tarnish your reputation for future ideal customers, and that's where the PR firm comes into play. So all of those service providers can be paid for by cyber insurance. So where does coronavirus come into this situation? Well, the exposure has drastically increased since we've sent all these people to work from home. Phishing, kind of social engineering, email scams have been going around. The FBI issued warnings back in March. Small businesses and larger businesses are seeing more frequency and severity of these data breaches. So really watch out for Microsoft 365. SolarWinds is obviously in the news now, a huge data breach, potentially one of the biggest ever. They're still investigating. What can you do about this other than, on the back end buy cyber insurance? On the front end, you want to have strong passwords, backups, two-factor authentication, and phishing cybersecurity training for your employees is huge. So other than, the nitty-gritty details of, how some of these policies respond, there's been a number of things that the insurance industry has done to try to help small businesses, even if the coverage isn't there. Number one is a lot of independent insurance agencies have put up what I've often been seeing called, COVID-19 or coronavirus resource centers. And it's really serving as a purpose to kind of cut through the noise and get you updated, direct, and thorough information on, how to apply for paycheck protection programs, how to kind of guide your HR department or managers, what to tell employees, what the difference between, isolation and quarantine, and all of these kind of details that have come out of the woodwork that everyone needs to know. Another thing has been a lot of endorsements or changes to policies. So a lot of the times professional liability, general liability, workers' comp, these are all rated, and the premium you pay for these policies is on a audited basis, and often directly correlates to your payroll or your sales. So if you were hurt really bad by the virus and you laid off a bunch of people and your sales are down, often you can endorse or change your insurance policy and pay a lot less for your business insurance. A lot of local, state-run workers' comp bureaus have created new class codes for furloughed employees and employees who might be working from home, who usually weren't, which decreases the rating and the cost you pay for workers' comp. So, the resource centers, policy changes, rating changes from the state side, from the carrier workers' comp side, as well as there was a ton of press around personal auto insurance. And we're all sitting at home, we're not driving as much, diminished use. Can we reduce our premiums because our car is just sitting in the driveway or the garage? The answer was yes. A ton of carriers, all over the world in the United States, kind of gave back premium dollars, 5, 10, 15% or so. But really looking, past 2020 and, the year's just about over, recording this the day after Christmas and in my new work from home setup, what there's going to be COVID, 25, there's going to be more viruses, whether that's 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now. What can we actually do about this long term? Well, like I mentioned before, it's super gray. It's new. Courts have to kind of catch up, and judges and state laws and federal government need to step in. One of the things that changed the world was 9/11 in 2001. George Bush passed the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act. I actually wrote an article about this, 6 months ago, so I'll link below. And what this did was kind of create a federal backstop for future terrorism threats, where essentially everybody pays in a little bit. You might have seen it, I think it's between 2 and 4%. You buy a few $1,000 insurance policy, you might pay $100, $200 for terrorism insurance included. So the policyholders and the business owners are paying into it a little bit. And the private insurance market is kind of the first level. And then if there is a terrorism attack and it exceeds X amount of dollars and the private insurance pays X amount of dollars, the federal government will step in and cover the rest, essentially. So a lot of people have been speculating that maybe we can do something similar with kind of a pandemic insurance act of 2020 or something. I certainly didn't see any movement on this under the Trump administration, but who knows, under the Biden administration, something like this could potentially be done. The second thing, obviously, was some federal aid. A lot of other countries passed, more payments to small businesses. You had to kind of apply through your bank, Paycheck Protection. All of you are familiar with that, so maybe we'll see more of that. I know December 26th of 2020, we're debating, if they're going to give $600 or $2,000 to everybody in the U.S., and who knows what that amount will be and if it'll happen. The third, and what I found unlikely, because as you've seen, North Carolina and maybe 2% of all these claims have been paid by insurance companies. But one option for a solution would be, hey, let's make a virus included in the typical property covered causes of loss. Well, if you remember AIG in 2008 with the global financial crisis, the federal government had to bail them out. Who knows, how many insurance companies would potentially have to be bailed out if every business and every restaurant in America, just had their private business insurance pay for, all of their taxes and their insurance and their rent and their payroll and their stock, their commercial refrigerators, whatever was in them. that would be quite a sight to see. The fourth one I also see as kind of a solution that's potentially already here, but an insurance company or companies creating a new product. Say, hey, here's your virus insurance policy. There's an article, again, I'll link below, from Lloyd's of London that I believe one of the professional tennis tournaments actually had an insurance policy that covered viruses. So Lloyd's of London is kind of a stock market, if you will, of insurance. It's kind of an insurance marketplace. So they insure, all types of weird things, Michael Jackson's voice box and Kim Kardashian's butt and all types of stuff. So that could be an interesting thing too, or maybe just maybe a chamber of commerce or a restaurant association or a group of similar industries kind of pooling resources together and creating their own kind of risk pool, not necessarily insurance, but a way to mitigate those larger losses. So that's all I really had for you. I wish I could make a video saying, hey, everything's covered, have at it. You'll enjoy it. If you found this video helpful, let me know. Again, Brian Mahon, certified insurance counselor. Drop a comment below, and thank you so much.